News.
It's Saturday, baby.
For all the people who did come to our previous panels, I just wanted to let you know I brought the DM hammer.
Alright, since it's a little late in the day, we'll go ahead and start. We're already past our start point anyways. So of course, for Saturday Night Sell Swords, I'm Blake.
I'm Steven.
I'm Blake. Tom.
Yeah, you're Tom. And this is our panel about flavor text. I kind of touched upon this in a lot of the previous panels, skimmed a bit into it. This is going to be more of a focus on it, both for player and in one case even an entire one-shot we had done. So flavor text is obviously using your imagination to dress up your mechanical abilities in the game, whether attacks, spells, whatever they may be. One example is, I had a character who got into combat. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and summon forth I'm going to draw a card. It's going to line up with a sort of black flame. I'm going to throw it at the enemy. It's going to hit him with a bit of force behind it, a little bit of fire, knock him 20 feet back, and then I'm going to wait for my next turn. Or I could have said, I used Eldritch Blast because of my Genie Warlock ability. I did fire and necrotic damage because of Agonizing Blast. Which sounds more fun. That's flavor texting. I also use that to fake certain spells with the invocations. Like I would summon forth a Cloud of Darkness and describe it that it was an illusion and allowed me to have advantage while enemies had disadvantage. But if you do flavor text well enough, even your DM may ask you, what are you playing again? And that should be your goal. To where even the players are like, is that a homebrew? No, it's not. Like, see, you got any examples?
Willem is a character that I made. Technically, he is a warlock, but I'm playing him off as the greatest playwright that has ever lived. He is in the middle of writing the best book ever written. So combat-wise, everybody else is doing all these things. He's just sitting there doing this. Every now and then looking at an enemy, no, I need you over there. And what he's doing is technically Eldritch Blast. I'm going to give him the arms of a
Repelling Blast.
Repelling Blast to push them farther away, move them closer. But really, it's just stage direction. I need you more there, please, to give somebody else advantage. And it's never going to say Eldritch Blast, never going to use magic, but it's all coming from the book. And eventually, later on, we'll go in to figure out, oh, he's not a bard, he's a warlock. And I think that's fun.
I could beat both y'all. I know our friend Jamie, he ran a one-shot of just 5th edition D&D, but just flavor texted the entire thing as Cyberpunk 2077. So spells were now just, techno magic. If you want to create a fireball, you can have, little micro robots causing little fires, stuff like that. You don't just have to flavor text, things like spells and items. You can flavor text an entire class. Well, I want an unarmed fighter who gets multiple attacks. Well, I'm a monk, but I call myself a fighter. I'm a human, but I want to be a warforged, so I'm just going to play a warforged who thinks he's human. Or I'm just going to play a human who has all these warforged abilities.
Yeah,
flavor text works for you.
Going off of Jamie's one-shot that you brought up, I like warlocks. I decided I want to try the Pact of the Chain with the Familiar and the Imp. So I reflavored him completely as a drone. So anytime I did a touch spell through that drone, it was like an attachment would come out, like maybe it would be like a little dart shooting something, or it would touch and create a field around them to create temporary cloaking. And I had a ball with that. But now granted, if you're doing a whole campaign, like he did, it's a lot, because you have to do all the classes, all the spells, all the items, wherever's going to be in that game. If someone's like, hey, I want to play this, okay, we got to figure out how that's going to work in this world, and anything the enemies have. But if you do it right, to a side person just walking by, be like, oh, what are you guys playing, Cyberpunk? Are you playing Shadowrun? Like, no, D&D 5e. And yeah, you have the druid in that one, right?
I had a druid in that one, and then I used spells, and it was different because we weren't playing a spell old-fashioned thing. We were doing technology, but I still was able to use the magic, and I brought that forth as in using the micro machines. You said,
Nanobots.
for the nanobots as causing acid damage, but really it was the fire damage because they were just injecting. It was an 80s movie with a little spider that would inject acid into somebody's head, and that was my idea for it, was to bring that into it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. I don't remember the name of that specific Tom Selleck movie, but I know that movie.
Yeah, close enough.
Anyway, the biggest thing I can say in regards to flavor text is it's essentially just lying. Makes it really easy to do whatever you want, because it's just wait, are you playing a barbarian? No, I'm playing a charisma-based spellcaster with a hammer.
It's the concept's all about making the it's all about making the concept for the character you want. Because I always tell new players when they ask about the game, when they're getting into it, well, what can I do? Like, well, you can play anything. With certain limitations found in the system, of course. But you can bring any concept to life to an extent, and that's what the flavor text is for. The mechanics, that's the game balance. Obviously, you don't want to make a fireball a 60-foot burst in some cases, because now it makes it way too powerful.
You don't.
That's what higher spell slots are for, or new spells. But yes.
It sounds to me like you're getting into the difference between the fluff or flavor text and the crunch, the actual rules that cannot be altered.
Yes. Yeah, that's the point I was making, is that while the crunch is set for the game balance, which can still be altered per groups and tables, but the fluff is you go as far as you want. As long as mechanically it's sound, it's fine. You can churn a fireball into, and this is a little bit of mechanical leaking in. Let's say you want to make an ice-based mage, but there's not a lot of ice-based spells in 5e, as I'm sure some of you have seen. But if the DM's fine, then okay, instead of produce flame or firebolt, it could be ice bolt or sphere of cold. Fireball could be ice ball or ice storm.
Okay, man, let it go.
Let it go? Yeah, let it go. So yeah, you can use that, and like I said, you can delve into the mechanics of it, the crunch, or just keep it pure fluff. But in the process, you'll make whatever character you're really wanting to play, and not feel limited by the system, because 5e, there's only 13 classes, for example. Other games, a little more, but yeah.
Yeah, like part of the fluff that you guys talk about constantly is, I believe, the Critical Role Barbarian who couldn't grow a beard.
Yeah. Grog.
Yeah, that's all just, that's all just flavor text right there. It's like,
Yeah, Mercer decided, I don't know if he went by a certain book or decided that the Goliath race doesn't grow facial hair or body hair at all. Travis wanted to have a beard, got the belt dwarven kind. He's like, okay, roll for it. Grew a beard. No mechanical benefit. He's just has a nice beard now.
yeah, until your neck gets cold.
Yeah. Let's see. You can also do it to alter races. In fact, in my next campaign, I'm taking some of the monstrous races and using them as a base plate for stat blocks and such. But I'm changing up names and slightly descriptions on them to make sort of new races, but not have to entirely homebrew a race. So like goblins might be little smaller feral humanoids, for example. Tieflings are pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I was gonna say little draconic goblins. What are you saying? That sounds like a kobold to me, sir.
Yes, I could. Yeah.
An awful lot like one.
But then you can also bring in classic versions of the races and just change them up. Like this, kobolds were small dog-like creatures in earlier folklore, but then D&D said no reckoning of dragons, which I'm all for that because they're funny, very fun to play.
Good thing they had three kobolds in a trench coat as a human.
I had a player play that. It was pretty funny. He even printed his own mini for it. That
Couldn't you
was
be an elf?
great. What else?
Pointy your ears.
Well, he was talking about 3 kobolds in a trench coat pretending to be a human. Why do they gotta be human? They can't be an elf.
Yeah, they
Pointy
could
your
be.
ears.
That's
Wherever your
just taking-
imagination takes you is really all flavor texting is. and just trying to find a way to make it work.
Oh, and by the way, if anybody has any questions at any point, feel free to raise your hands and ask them. We are very easily interrupted, as you can see.
ADHD's a thing.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going? I don't remember the guy's name, but when we were playing the Cyberpunk version, how did you flavor a wild shape?
I actually didn't do wild shape with it. I focused more on the spells and the stealthy because I was more stealthy for it. And I also came in late because I had work that night, so I just dove right into it and I just kind of messed things up at the end.
Okay, how I would have done that though is I would have cybernetic augmentation. It's like, oh yeah, I just have the ability to, every so often, I got just enough power to flip this button to turn into a couple animals.
Actually, I think if I remember now, you were doing a Transformer type Warforge, like a Beast Wars, and that's how you did some of the wild. Because at the end, you did do some wild shapes.
So he was a robot in disguise.
But actually, going off that, there was a one shot he ran where I played a druid, and I mentioned this in a prior panel, but the character was. I played him off the shapeshifter. That was all his spells. So like Thorn Whip, his arm would shift into a thorny vines and use the spell, and then he'd pull him in. The whole idea was that he was a familiar that got stuck on this plane of existence and was no longer bound to his master. And that's how I played him off. Every spell was some transformation to his body, and then the effect would occur. Let's see.
Wow, got real quiet in here.
Tell me any examples of some
Flavor
you've done?
texting? Every character I have has flavor texting. Most of the time people will be like, I play your hitter classes when I'm actually playing not DMing. Brain shut off for half a second. So when I'm playing a character, I love the hitter classes, so it's like, I want to play a barbarian, okay? But, like, and people have used this idea many different times, I'm just a bear in armor with a weapon, and I'm using intimidate checks to make people pretty much understand me from time to time. Well, that's not based off of any one class at all. That is merely just me flavor texting. It's like I stare at them and I look angry, and they go, I think he wants a waffle.
You want pancakes. Actually, that reminds me of... Who's a fan of any, like, Berserker mode, Super Saiyan mode, or like a hyper-powered up state from any anime or video game? You can actually take the fighter's action surge, or even the barbarian's rage, to flavor text that into your character. I actually had a player a while back wanted to play like an Ichigo from Bleach kind of character, and he wanted to do more of the hollow version. I was like, well, you could do the barbarian and make the rage his hollowification for the combat. Or you can go with fighter and then have the multi-attack, you're going really fast. I think he went with fighter in that case, but it was one way to simply just change up a core mechanic and then flavor it up how he wanted and to play the character he wanted. And it was much happier that way. Instead of us trying to homebrew an entire character that probably would have been overpowered, because anime characters usually are. Yeah?
How do you like to flavor wizard spellbooks to different things other than spellbooks?
Unfortunately, I don't like the I don't like the Venetian magic system, personally. I think it's a holdover from earlier D&D that I don't like how it works in comparison to other mages. But if I were to play one, I would probably, and I've actually talked about this, considering materia, almost from Final Fantasy VII, and basically where the wizard creates, as they grow more expansive, and create these sort of minor pearls of power that every day they spend time to manipulate the weave and create their spells and put it in that pearl. And then when they use it, it goes double. There was their spell slot, that was their prep for their spell book, and it fits nicely crunched. And for me, it's like, that's how I would run it if I was going to be a wizard. You guys got any take on that?
Eidetic familiars who I communicate my information with telepathically, or sentient tattoos that reveal themselves as time goes on. So it explains why my spellbook's getting bigger and bigger, even though I'm not. How about you?
I don't play a good wizard. I'm a barbarian. I'm not that smart.
What are you
But he is a wizard in our
currently
current
playing in your
campaign.
current campaign?
A very bad wizard. Because I don't
We
like
get a
how
familiar for like
a
3
wizard gets
seconds.
X amount of spells every day. So, but in my head, like you've spent all this time memorizing all of these spells, putting them in your spell book. Why can I only use one per day? I like his idea of I put these spells into whether it's a flask or a pebble or a rock or whatever, and once that power's gone, that's why I can't use that spell again for the rest of the day. Just to flavor it up as in, it's not just going into my book, reading it and tearing it off and doing what I
Once
have to.
again, this brings us back to the flavor text. How I would have flavored that is I only have enough energy to do a certain type of spell, and I've got to put my energy towards that. Think of it like social anxiety. I can talk to one person today, so am I going to the post office or the bank?
We actually have a phrase at our table during the game, and it is, read the whole spell, Steve.
Yeah, actually, read the whole spell, insert last name. We have 2 people with 1 job to mess things up.
Yeah.
And they're not taking turns.
It's almost a competition at times for them.
We went to go to Universal and we ended up at,
Actually, it is the crime.
what is that place called again? Medieval Times. We went the wrong way.
That's a whole other story for another time.
Yeah, that's nothing to do with flavor text. Okay, these guys went on an adventure to the fallen land of Universal, where they got so turned around they end up at medieval
In
times.
Kissimmee. Nowhere near Universal Studios. Yeah.
Yeah.
But did that answer your question well enough? Okay. Any other questions so far? Or any like you have an idea, you're not sure how to flavor it or like put it out there or get it rolling? Cool. Oh, narrow it.
How do you like the flavor finishing blows?
Finishing blows? Depends on the player hand.
Like that.
Some of us at our table are a little more descriptive and we enjoy throwing it out there. Sometimes we just let the DM come up with something really good. But usually because it's the death blow for the enemy, if it's an NPC, I like to get the character's chance to come back. I personally like to make it a bit more gruesome, like implying, no, you got him. It's dead. You don't have to keep beating it. It's dead. It's not getting back up. But if the enemy might have regeneration, I'll do a lesser version of the description to imply that maybe there's some, maybe we're going to go take a look at that. How would you describe finishing blows? Flavor.
It definitely does add up to the player, but at least walk them into what they're going to be doing. If you're a hack and slash, obviously you go into it all the way. Sorry. If you're a hack and slash, you go into it all the way, multiple attacks, one final blow, or wizard, ashing them out. They're puffed up, gone.
I do believe he's talking about describing your finishing blow.
That depends
Yeah,
on the
it's like,
character.
it depends on the character and the DM. Certain DMs are not so descriptive with the attack, in which case then I like to describe, well, then I walk up and I knock his head off like I'm hitting a grand slam, or sometimes it's, I sneak up behind him and I go bonk. It really depends on the tone of the fight. If we were just getting slapped around, I like to get graphic with it. But if it's just like we accidentally followed the wrong guy out of the tavern. And this is not the guy we're supposed to be beating up, but we did it anyway. It's just a
Murder hobo.
Yeah, actually, to kind of
I
go
am
off
a
that
murder
question
tourist.
a bit.
Thank you.
He's one of my players in my Curse of Strahd game, and they had gone back to town to try to recruit a priest to join them. And this was a point in the story where I was going to have Strahd reveal himself a bit. So when they went to the church, vampire spawns were attacking, keeping the townsfolk back. As they were trying to get closer, Strahd walks out with the priest, and then just very efficiently and elegantly finishes him off. Just one little snap. Smiled at the party members, and then turned to bats and flew off. And then they found out later on, invitation has been opened to the castle. Please come on down. There'll be a lovely dinner. He actually ate the dinner. It was delicious.
It was good. It was really good. It was fantastic.
But back on the point of flavor texting, this is, in a one-shot, I was playing a Hexblade Paladin, and this was something I wanted to change up, because most people, when you play a Paladin or Eldritch Smite from Warlock, you get that Smite and you get that one big massive hit, like the blade charges up, you just do all that damage. I said, no. I'm gonna take every damage die and make that a different attack. So even though I rolled like once, so do it hits? He's like, yep, okay, cool. And then I described I think I rolled 12 or 14 dice as my character moving really fast, kind of like Cloud versus Sephiroth in the Final Fantasy VII Advent Children movie at the end, and I was just doing that off trees, off the ground, a little bit of Rock Lee from him versus Gara, and that's how I described all the smite damage. Instead of just one, no, it was slash, 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 slash. And it was a lot of fun. It made the character more interesting and different than, oh, he's a paladin. Go smite him. Like I said, the players weren't even sure what I was playing. They just knew he was some swordsman that was helping them in this particular venture, and that's how I wanted to do it. And it was a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, and one of the more important things about that really annoys the heck out of me, just so you're all aware, it's like, nobody knew what I was playing. That's because we kept asking, and you kept not answering.
I have done that too.
It's like, what are you playing? I'm playing Batman. No, what's your class? Bat. What's your race? Man. I am vengeance.
It's always fun to keep a little cards under the table.
Yeah,
Even
we
from
also
other
call
players.
that cheating in every other game.
Well, it's a
I've
different
got
kind of
cards under the table. This is Monopoly.
Yeah. You want to tell them about Culto? How you played around with that monk?
Yes. What was I can't remember
Reason.
The living weapon?
the living weapon from the AU. So I played a slave kobold to begin it, and the way he became a monk or a fighter was the family that he was owned to would use him for their children as a practice dummy. They would beat the crap out of him every day, but in his free time he would just keep working out just to get through the day, every single day. Eventually got sick and tired of getting beat up on and hurt the master's child and ran away because he knew he was going to die. Joined up with the fellow party and then just kept up with his training because he was watching the kids learn these karate moves and all these things. So he just went along with it and realized he was decent at it. And then when he was with the rest of his party, he started making his attacks more and more like the parties. He was learning from his party members on how to fight because he didn't know what he was doing. He was just watching and mimicking everybody else's things.
Now mechanically, that was just him leveling up as a monk.
Plain and simple.
And the living weapon, he was an extension of his cobalt, his tail, his claws, but as he described, I mean, we've heard that kind of plot. First Ninja Turtles, I mimicked my master's movements from my cage and learned ninjutsu when I was still just a normal rabbit. Okay. Still love the movie, but
It works.
but it is one way to, and it's to take a better way to explain your class abilities so when as you level, you have a more smooth narration of how you got the new stuff your character gets. So like using Monk as an example, at one point monks get the ability where they understand all languages. You could flavor that up with, you've gotten to the point of such a meditative state that you've heard the universe's inner voice in a way or something, where you let the key flow through you to translate everything for you. That's a way to play around with it. Or you can go different directions with it completely, depending on the setting and the campaign, and like you were doing with your monk.
Okay, and one thing I do want to bring up is, I think we kind of glossed over it, is the importance of flavor texting for a DM. A lot of the times you're going to be helping your players make their characters, and they're not going to be creative, or they're going to do only things they've seen off movies and video games. Well, when you're the main character of a movie, a video game, book, whatever have you, you're invincible, you have plot armor, and you have every skill required to get to the end of your story. So, making Batman in D&D is, oh, well, so you want to be the rogue, artificer, barbarian, wizard. So it's best to just go, well, let's see what aspects of that character you want. We'll flavor text around as much as we can, and we'll make that character for you. But just remember, this is not going to be, everything you walk into, you're going to immediately survive if you keep acting like there's no way for you to be hurt beyond recognition. If a wizard walked around thinking they were a barbarian, that character would not last very long.
Yeah, actually that brings up a good point. And I think I mentioned this once before in a prior panel, but multi-classing. You can always do the traditional where if you're going from one class to another class, that you're just the normal characteristics of those classes bringing them together. Or you could take the new class as a different direction of your primary class. And like, let's say it's a fighter and a barbarian. I'm a formally trained fighter. I've been around the mage or the monk, and I've been trying to tap into ki or magic, and I've learned to sort of augment myself. There's the barbarian class. You don't even fluff it as rage. You don't say, I would like to rage and rah. No, it's just I power up, and now I can attack. I hit harder. I can take more damage because of magic protects me a bit, or I don't feel the pain as much. Or you could have just done the traditional, well, I'm a fighter and I've learned a little bit of barbarian abilities. But that's a way to bring that together in a more smooth concept and for the narration. Yeah,
Oh, you want me to add on to?
I don't know if you had anything else you want to add on to that or something similar, like you was about to.
I want to add on to a lot of the stuff you say. Take in small doses. When it comes to the actual flavor texting as a DM to help characters make their multi-classes mesh together, I find one of the most hardest things to do is explain to me while I'm essentially just playing 2 level 1s instead of 1 level 2, and is there a way we can work around that? As far as, because that's what's going to happen when you flavor text, like, oh well, I took 1 level of every class, like, so yeah, you're basically just playing 7 level 1s.
Yeah,
You're the starting party.
Yeah, a very absurd concept.
That'd be a
Someone
hard
gets
class
that.
to play. That'd be a hard class to play.
What, well, level 1 of every class?
Yeah.
You do that kind of thing in a one shot, and you let your DM.
Oh no, I mean I'm just merely bringing up it's from a DM perspective. That's one of the more difficult things is glossing over the low level.
Yeah. Good point. Any questions so far, or any requests of expanding on anything we've said so far? All right, good.
Good. That means we're informing you properly.
Good jobs.
Yeah. Oh no, we screwed up.
You ever get into a situation where your flavor text is so flavorful that you confuse the DM and he doesn't know exactly what you're trying to do?
I have actually, and I did have to clarify again.
How does that get resolved? You just say you're really a fireball, or
Yeah, it's sometimes simple of, oh hey, remember I'm playing this, and that was just that ability. If it's something like we really wanted to keep I want to keep the concept alive, because I have played with some players before where I played a rogue once. I wanted to play him nothing like a rogue, so I played it was a pixie, and I played him off as everything but a rogue. And then finally a player's like, well, what are you playing? I'm like, well, it's a rogue. Oh, well, you should be checking for traps. And all of a sudden he was like, okay, rogue do this, rogue do that, rogue do this, and I was like, all right, fine. And I was done. I didn't want to play it anymore. So when the end's like, kill it. But yeah, sometimes I did have to remind the DM in that case, like, hey, I'm playing this. Or like when I was doing the Genie Warlock, and he's like, well, how far, like a player asked me, how far can you throw a card? I was like, well, on a good day, about 120 feet. Eldritch Blast 120 feet.
Click.
Yeah. Now, whether or not the player realized, oh, he's doing a spell, but yeah, sometimes I have clarified and just, oh no, I'm playing this class, this is how I'm just flavoring it up. Or if someone wants to learn, like, oh, what are you playing, how you doing? I'll then explain at that point. So, sometimes clarification, it's perfectly fine to do.
Yeah.
Especially if it's the DM asking, what are you doing? Because like, oh, well, I don't want to be cheating. No, that's what I'm doing.
Means you're doing a good job.
Yeah. Or in the case of like the Ice Mage, make sure they're okay ahead of time and they understand.
Yes. No. Thankfully, we actually have a very, very knowledgeable DM. He does seem to keep well versed on how our characters are built, what we're doing, all our spells, our AC, our hit points, our weaknesses, where we sleep. Son of a... I realize what he's doing. And when it comes to character creation, as far as confusing your DM, it would be impressive, but most of the time they should be there for most of the character building and the session zeros to help adapt your character into their story.
Yeah. That's very helpful.
So the best way to resolve it is that, conversation with the DM. Okay, let me explain to you how my character works.
Yeah, definitely like...
Because I believe that was part of the question, and how does it get resolved?
Yes. Yeah. That answers your question? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree on that. And you should be working with your DM, making the character
Always.
So this way, if you do want to do an interesting concept with flavor text and the window dress it up to the point of it doesn't even look like it's class, like his bard, a warlock, but he wants to play completely as a bard, but he liked the warlock mechanics. And that's something else if you think you can do is, because all the classes they're just toolboxes. They're a concept with just here are the certain tools this class gets. Now some tools are really neat for those classes. That's what set them apart from a fighter from a barbarian, a warlock from a wizard. And sometimes your concept, while this should be it, this is actually a little closer. Like Pathfinder 1E does not actually have the warlock class. We were considering going to Pathfinder for my campaign. We're going to stay on 5E, but he was like, well, how do I adapt that character? And I was like, well, we can reflavor up the witch class. It's kind of close. She gets hexes, which are like invocations. Or you could do the Pact Wizard, which has some similar elements that mechanically should be close. We could look for a homebrew, or we could find another class and just reflavor everything to get exactly what you wanted before, or at least as close as possible. And I think we were going to maybe do Witch for you if we had gone to Pathfinder, which would have been just been a little different, and I might even pour over some of the 5e stuff, because mechanically it's not that different. I might have to up the damage a little bit or adjust the DCs or certain things to match that system. But that's the crunch portion. While flavor-wise, it would have been the same Willem going, nope, I want you over here. No, stage right, stage left, and we're going to leave now. Exit stage, and that's a teleport out.
Okay. Yeah. I don't see any hands up, so I'll ask a question then.
Plot twist.
Okay. Which system do you find it to be the easiest to flavor text the character and what you want it to be? Which one do you find to be the hardest?
That's a good one.
For me, 5e is the easiest, and Pathfinder so far has been the hardest.
Okay.
There's a lot more math in Pathfinder and a lot more finer, subtle details in Pathfinder than there is in 5e with bounded accuracy.
He's never played first or second edition, just to be aware.
No, I played 3.5 and 4 though.
I had a friend run GURPS for me once, and that system has a full customization for character creation, and I found in that system you could there's a joke story, someone made a rock. Mechanically it ended up being a rock, and that's just what it was. That system you can make almost anything. And there's rules, there's expansion of the rules include magic, psionics, sci-fi, whatever. And I felt that system was probably the easiest to do it with. The hardest would probably be a very setting specific system. So like if I went with something for the 40K universe and I was trying to reflavor that to be medieval, medieval's not too far, but point being is that there are certain concepts that don't carry over mechanically, in which case you're better off using a different system, which is why when we were talking about this one class, the Warlock, he was even considered playing a different class completely and doing a new character, because it's just Pathfinder may not have been the best match for Willem in that case. Though we did find some options, it was still near, in which case don't be afraid to choose a different system, I'd say. Or do a different character in that case.
Alright.
Anything you want to add to that?
Nope, I'm good. Yeah, that's about it from all we. Do you have any further questions? Alright.
Thank you for coming to our panel.
Yeah, let's put an early end to the panel and
Yeah, it's the end of the week.
let
I'm sure
everybody
y'all wanna
enjoy
go.
their weekend and not have to let us flounder.
Thank you guys very, very much for coming out.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you, guys.
Alright.